So today we're going to be continuing to look at a scenario where civilization starts over. This is our brand new series which you guys have loved so far, so of course we're going to be continuing to do it. And in this series, humanity simply disappears and restarts in Mesopotamia and expands out from there. And this is what we have on our map so far. So each color that you see is a different group of civilization, or I guess you could say country. And this is the third episode of this series, so if you haven't seen the first two and you want to catch up, you should go watch those before you watch this one. Anyway, if you guys do enjoy today's episode, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We're at 133,000 right now, so there is a ways to go. However, I do believe it is within our grasp, but all the support is greatly appreciated. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump straight back into what if civilization started over. All right, so in our previous episode, we had a lot going on. It was mostly a lot of expansion by the countries that are already here, but we also saw a lot of breakaways, such as the orange country breaking away and the lime country breaking away, as well as the teal country breaking away. Those are our three newest civilizations. However, in this episode, we're going to be seeing a lot more of those because, well, at this point in time, it's unlikely that civilizations would be able to get as large as, like, say, the red one is. So what we would see is pretty much a collapse. But since I am kind of favored towards the red one, we're not going to be seeing that just yet. Also, regarding the gray stuff, now I know we were talking about that in the last episode, and I did read through the comments, and the opinions were very mixed on if I should keep it or not. So we're going to be rolling with it for one more episode, and if you guys like really don't like it, I'll look at the comments on this video, then we'll go back just to the plain white map. But make sure you do let me know if you prefer the gray or not in the comments, because that input is very helpful, and if you guys don't want to see it, then I'll change it back to normal and we'll just do something else for the discovered lands. Anyway, the purple country is going to be our first subject here. Now remember, when they were first created, they were created to be nomadic. They were not going to stay in the same place. However, for the entirety of their existence, they have stayed in the same place and they have expanded. However, to the point where, you know, it's just like they're still where they started. So are they really nomadic? Well, my answer to that question is yes. After a long time, they finally move out of the Turkish peninsula and into mainland Europe, leaving this land pretty much barren. So at this point, we have different regional governments rising up and taking control of the different areas. And I want to be trying to do a new thing here where we keep the colors similar. So like these countries came from the main purple one, which means that they are going to be of that purple-ish color. Now, of course, this could get a little out of hand with how many different countries are going to be. So we'll try to keep it simple for now. However, this is what we have happening, and the rest is taken over by the red team. So yeah, the purple team officially moves out of the Turkish peninsula, and I'm actually just gonna go ahead and clean up some of these borders because they don't look very good. All right, that's acceptable, maybe. Anyway, like I said at the beginning, some of these countries are a little too big, and unfortunately, the red team is one of them. Now, if you remember from the last episode, they did expand greatly. They went all the way into Africa and established new lands over here, and even established lands over here in Sicily. Now, like I said, I keep repeating myself in this series, so I need to stop doing that, but these countries, they can't get too big, otherwise they're going to collapse. And that's something that was common in the time frame. Now, I'm not sure what the exact time period is at this point in regards to our actual human history. So, you know, this is an alternate timeline, so it's not like it's actually going to align with ours. So I'm not really entirely sure how advanced these civilizations are just yet. I know they're not advanced enough to cross the ocean or, you know, go to Australia or even to like probably make that voyage. They can move around the Mediterranean Sea just fine, but that's because the waters here are slightly less rough than actual ocean waters. I'm not sure exactly like what age they're in, like are they in the Bronze Age or I don't know. That's where you guys are going to have a little bit of creativity. You can kind of make this up for yourselves and see how you want it to be. Anyway, I'll stop yapping. We have a large portion of the red team breaking away from the red team, and those colors are a little too similar. All right, they're going to be like a really dark blue color. There we go. But yeah, these guys break away from the red team, and the red team doesn't really have the capabilities to really reinstate all this land for themselves. So what happens to them is they're basically kicked back to what would be the Suez Canal. And now we have a new ginormous country being formed over here in northern Africa. However, the stability of this country is not very good, and it soon finds itself in internal conflict. Anyways, back up in northern Europe where everything is nice and happy, we have more and more of Europe being discovered, now going into Poland and even into Germany. The Alps are still a kind of tricky situation, so they mostly avoid that region. but more and more of the world is being discovered, and eventually these countries start to expand as well. The Orange Team, which is, very anti-expansionist, does do a little bit of expanding, but they also want to make sure that the people within are happy, so they don't do too much and focus on some more social issues. The Yellow Team, not learning their lesson, is going to expand north. And remember, these are like the weird cold people that want to be cold, so they keep going up. At this point though, there is internal conflict in the Yellow Team once again, and well, they're finally maybe going to learn their lesson, because an uprising occurs in the main areas of the Yellow Country. Now remember, they started out from going up this coast over here and up to here. Eventually they lost the Orange Team, which used to be a part of their country, but now we're seeing areas of what is the more populated areas of the Yellow Country rise up against it, and eventually their government is overthrown and a new one is established. However, the ideals of the expansionists, which are currently up north, remain, and this really isn't simply just a new government taking over. This is a whole new country taking over. It established itself pretty nicely down here in the southern part of what would be Ukraine and Russia, and it leaves the expansionist Yellow Country up to the north. Having just lost half of their territory and all of their population, the Yellow Team will now go even more north and eventually meet up with what is the Baltic Sea. And this is pretty huge because another water source has been found. Fishing at this point isn't as big as it used to be for like down here in Mesopotamia, but it is still like a fairly good source of food. So having access to the Baltic Sea is pretty huge if it isn't frozen. Anyway, Sicily just broke away and became its own thing. That blends in very nicely with the background. And remember how I said these guys were unstable earlier? Well, they are. And it turns out that Sicily thing wasn't just Sicily. It actually turns out to be half of this country. So yeah, that happens. And it splits pretty much right in half. So yeah, there's a lot of new countries that have appeared at this point, and it's not stopping anytime soon. Now, back to some more lore. The Orange Country has some lore that it needs to uncover. A group of explorationists who, have discovered Germany at this point continue going over this way until eventually they get lost. I'm not sure exactly how they get lost, but they managed to get lost. And it's a pretty large group of people. It's like around 100 people who are on this voyage to discover more of Europe. So what they do instead of trying to get back is that they establish a new country, like any other sane person would have done. And they establish themselves in what is the current day Netherlands, as well as Belgium. Eventually they do go on more voyages, exploring more and more of the coast of Europe and France. And the Orange Team does eventually get curious as to what happened to their exploration group. So of course, they send people out and eventually they find the new country, which has been flourishing for a couple of years now. And well, I mean, they're not going to do anything about it because it's been a few years. And yeah, that's another thing that I need to mention. Perspective on time. You have to make it up for yourself. If you think this all happens within a couple of months of each other, then go ahead. If you think it happens within a couple of years with each other, then you're on the same kind of train as I am. Now, I'm not sure how rapid this expansion would be from Mesopotamia, but at this point, it's been a few decades. Yeah, so you can kind of have your own perspective on time at this point. But yeah, civilization is greatly starting to expand outward, starting from, well, actually, it was down in here, and essentially just exploding out, mostly going north towards the colder areas. But yeah, at this point, there's going to be even more expansion, but this time going east. The Lime Team, which was fairly newly formed, will now go down into what is currently India, and they will establish themselves pretty nicely along this coastline. At this point, the Green Team is also looking to expand. They simply just head north and go along the border of what is now the Gold Team. They also start to do some exploration of their own, going straight up north, but eventually it gets kind of too cold because, Russia, and they are forced to stop. They then decide to go east, but this is pretty boring, so they stop because it's just a bunch of plains, and yeah, they just focus on colonizing this for now. Let's talk about the Red Team. The Red Team has lost a lot of its land recently, and in the past couple of years, the people of the Red Team have become very kind of anxious that they might be out of touch with what's going on in the rest of the world. At this point, there's a ton of civilizations. At the first, it was just the Red Team, and then the Blue Team broke away, and then you had things like the Green Team forming from a part of the Red Team, and then you had the Yellow Team, and then the Purple Team, and from there it just exploded, quite literally. But the people are getting kind of anxious that the Red Team might be on the decline and that their once powerful country isn't as powerful anymore. So with popular support by the people, the Red Team will gear up and go to war. And war is not something that is very common at this point in civilization because, there's really no need for it. Civilizations on their own aren't very strong to stick together due to either food shortages or plague or disease, or stuff like that. So war is not something that's very plausible. However, when it pleases the majority of people, I'm sure they'd be able to raise an army to do this. They start invading and attacking into what is the green territory, and the green team, who is completely taken by this, is completely unprepared, and the red team has a lot of success in taking over their land. Eventually, though, the green team does come to a compromise with the red team, dealing with peace, in which, the green team just accepts its fate and the red team is allowed to take the land that they took. The lime team, now fearing for its life, will go ahead and put a bunch of troops on their border. And this is going to be pretty expensive for the lime team because they're not a very strong country. They just formed in the last episode, and the people here aren't too fond of the idea of war. And putting troops on the border of another country usually doesn't really go well with the populace anyway, unless they're like warmongers. So yeah, it gets a little rebellious within the lime team, but they're able to control it for now. Anyway, back over here with our newest country, I think, maybe? No. Second newest country. They're going to continue the will of the red team and go west. They eventually meet up with what is current day Morocco and keep slithering down the coast of Western Africa until eventually they get a little too long and can't go anymore. At this point, expeditions into the Sahara are tried, but they usually don't end too well, so nothing much comes from it. However, some very brave individuals manage to get up into what is Iberia, and Southern Europe is pretty much discovered at this point. Now, of course, I think in real life, on like a very clear day in southern Spain, you can see across this channel. That's what my Spanish teacher said, at least. So they probably knew that it was there, but they just never discovered it or explored it. But yeah, at this point, Europe is pretty close to being fully discovered. Speaking of the Dutch, they're going to go ahead and discover and explore all of the Danish peninsula and the surrounding islands, and even into parts of Sweden. Now at this point, once again, this is a fairly new country, but they are very expansionist, because remember, they were previously a discovery group for the Orange Country. So yeah, of course they'd be fully set on expanding. They go up into what is the Danish peninsula, but they don't really dare to touch these islands because, it might be a little bit too much for the new country, but they do take over the northern areas of Germany and the Netherlands. The purple team just discovered Sardinia. The purple team just discovered Corsica, and hence Sardinia. And eventually they do manage to colonize these islands. This weird pink purple thing discovers Crete and colonizes it. And the red team finally figured out what that big island was. It was Cyprus. So at this point, a majority of Mediterranean islands have been discovered and colonized, and a lot of Europe is starting to come together. Over here in where the lime team is, they're going to continue to go down into India, but remember what I said earlier, they were feeling a little bit rebellious on the inside, and the people of this country are not going to be too keen of this expanding when, there's a giant threat on the border. First you take our taxpayer money and you put troops on the border, now you're using that to go even more east? Really? Sounds like the lime team government doesn't really know what it's doing. And what's the solution to that? Well, overthrowing the government, of course. A large movement takes place across all of the mainland lime territory. This is like their base territory. And eventually a new government rises up and replaces the old one. But like what we've seen before in this series, the old one manages to either escape or, sends a convoy out and goes over to its new expansion territory and lives on. So that government gets kicked out of what is Iran and moves over to what is now like Pakistan and India. There are a few skirmishes on the way out though. The lime team isn't let go too easily, but eventually they do stop, and the lime team is living on over here in the Indian subcontinent. England was just discovered by the Dutch. That's going to lead to a series of world events which are very regrettable, isn't it? The purple team managed to get across those mountains now, and they now are going into southern France. They still aren't able to fully conquer the Alp Mountains, but they break through over here, so that's cool. And what this leads to is a rapid discovery of southern Europe. And eventually the purple, the brown, and this color of blue countries all come together and essentially agree on to explore the rest of Europe, or what they're able to. Now this is the first time that we've seen any kind of major collaboration between countries, and slowly but surely over the next couple of years, the purple and the blue and the brown teams are able to fully discover the rest of southern Europe, as well as these islands. And really all that remains in the mainland continent that they haven't discovered is the Alp Mountains, but the purple team is quickly working on that. And of course, over those few years, they went ahead and colonized some of this land for themselves. So the brown team gets a little bit, the purple team got a little bit, and of course, the blue team got a little bit. At this point, the expansion into Europe is becoming very popular, and a lot of these old countries are feeling kind of left out. So what are they going to do? Well, start a war, of course. This new country here gets immediately opped on by the red team for literally no reason. And it scares this country so bad that they decide to change their color. So yeah, the red civilization is quickly becoming a world bully, And a lot of the countries around it really don't like it. You know, the blue team, of course, doesn't like it. The green team doesn't like it. They just got invaded. The lime, or I guess this new country, is scared of it. I mean, this used to be a part of it, but it broke away, so of course they don't like it. These guys are scared. Well, the orange team doesn't even fear God, so yeah, the orange team built different. The gold team, well, they barely even border them, so they don't care. Hey, guess what time it is? It's time for our annual yellow team breakaway. That's right, the yellow team really can't get it together, and they have yet another breakaway in what is now the current Russian Federation. A new country just dropped. And yeah, they do a little bit of their own colonizing because I don't like how they looked on the map. Still really don't. You know what? Good enough. All right, the yellow team at this point is being very careful now. Of course, they want to keep expanding because they have an addiction. So they do go up into the Baltic areas. But after going into a little bit of Poland and Kaliningrad, they eventually make a vow saying, hey, we're done. We won't do this anymore. And the yellow team is finally at peace with them cold selves. So yeah, yellow team. You only lost, you know, 2/3 of your country. Well, actually 3/4. It's kind of crazy to think that this entire grouping right here, which, you know, I try to keep the colors very similar, they all came from the same thing, which was this, you know, deadbeat dad kind of thing. Now, shame on the yellow country. Can we get some yellow country hate in the comments? You know what? Actually, I have an idea. I want you guys to make lore about the ruler of the yellow country and make it seem like he's just this kind of like egotistical kind of douchebag, but like make him seem very, what's the word, very self-conscious about it too. And he's like, well, I want to expand more, but you know, I definitely don't want to lose the support of the people. But then he goes and does it anyway, and then when people get mad at him, he's like, well, I was just doing what's best for the country. Yeah, someone cook up some lore. I don't know. If you can't fit in the comments, put it in the Discord. I'm totally not farming for engagements. Anyway, that is going to do it for today's episode. Now, I'm only 28 minutes into recording this, so it is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, so I do apologize for that. But the videos lately have been fairly long. Let me actually go check real quick, because I don't edit my own videos anymore, so I'm not really sure. Hey, me, what do you want? 23 minutes, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 11 minutes, 24 minutes, 22 minutes, 20 minutes. Yeah, so the videos overall have gotten longer since I switched editors from, you know, me to Jaden, and that might just be editing style. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't watch my own videos. That's a different kind of trust that I have in you, Jaden. Good job. But yeah, you know, it's fine. And I do want to say that I do plan on doing more Age of History videos soon. I'm just not entirely sure what kind of scenario I want to do with that yet. But yeah, that will be coming back. And for Alternate Future, I do need to redraw that map, so that's going to suck. But that should be coming back soon as well. Anyway, yeah, that is going to do it for today's episode of What If Civilization Restarted. I do want to thank you guys so much for watching this far if you have, and if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and leave a comment with your input. And if you're new around here, we are trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We're at 133,000 right now. We need roughly like what, 67,000 more subscribers. We have 12 months to get that. You know, at this point, basically 11 months to get there. And 67 divided by 11 is like, you know, 7,000 subscribers per month, which is very steep. But hey, we can do it, right? Actually, no, I'm horrible at math. Actually, like around 6,000 per month. So yeah, I mean, that's still pretty steep, but you know, anyway. I will now stop yapping. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. And of course, thank you to all the super fans, which include Matthew Newman, Yam, Kali Speaks Plays, Shadow Gamer Z, Deva Edits, Mr. Bonk 7, Hammer Toad 45, Patrick Clauser, Connor the Gamer, Texan Cowboy Cheese, Poland Country Ball, Yakko, Nevada Garbage Trucks, DW Cool Dude, Soviet Ball, and Serminator. Once again, thank you guys.